Nano machine. Bai, Anhongweolya. Chapter 352. The Hidden Power Within the Imperial Palace. Part 1. Enclosed in the dark sky, the shining full moon was covered by the clouds. It was still early in the evening when the entire Imperial Palace was lit up. There were numerous buildings located inside the Dragon Palace, beginning with the Empress and the Concubine's Palace, and through the buildings intended for the bureaucrats that are located just at the right spot for work. A castle on the eastern side was where the eunuchs of the Eastern Spear live. It is located not far from their dining area. There were about 10 people heading towards the innermost section of the east. 9 of them were all dressed as East Spear eunuchs, and one was wearing a military officer's uniform inlaid with gold. It was Chun Yowan. Flinch. The eunuchs who were walking along the path would look into Chun Yowan's eyes and flinched at his gaze. Everything went well according to Dae Dungdu's narrative. But, all were still afraid of the said ridiculous ability that Chun Yowan possessed. I am not sure if I can take down this person. The remaining 9 eunuchs shuddered at the thought of how Chun Yowan killed Yun Baek Ho. It was hard to believe that Chun Yowan had the capability to do that. Not realizing what these 10 people were going through, someone enthusiastically stated, "The Institute will be greatly pleased to know that a master like him is giving us a hand, ho ho ho." Unlike the other eunuchs, Dae Dangdu was excited at the thought that he managed to do something for once. He thought that he would be greatly appreciated since he managed to invite a Supreme Master Warrior, which no one had ever achieved. So noisy. It was the first time that Chun Yowan had come across someone who was as talkative as Hubong. He tried to ignore the words, but it was difficult to disregard that screeching laugh. As he was getting vexed, he came close to a building. It seemed like that was where the East Spear's eunuchs stayed and worked. Over there. A large structured manor was seen at the place where Dae Dangdu had pointed towards. Even within the Imperial Palace, such manor is still considered to be on a huge scale. It proved how inexorable the power of the East Spear has. That manor could accommodate 2,000 to 3,000 people. It seemed like the words which said that the Imperial Palace of the Demyong Empire was overflowing with eunuchs wasn't false at all. He followed Dae Dangdu to the entrance of the manor. Reaching the entrance, Dae Dangdu asked the guards who watched over the place. "Did the Gong return yet?" "He hasn't come back yet. It is getting late." Normally, he would retire and return before it got dark. But the fact that the person hadn't come seemed to be related to his workload. Was it because His Highness had just returned? Even if that wasn't the case, it was said that Zhu Taikon had returned after completing the order for the envoy. Then Lord O must not have come back yet too. Yes. It was expected. Lord O has always been complimented by East Spear's commander, Im Gong. Thus, he could be considered as the right arm of the commander. His absence meant that he was still working. Dae Dangdu glanced at Chun Yowan, who was standing next to him. He insisted that he would be recommended to Im Gong right away, but the man himself wasn't even present. How did it all come to this? If Im Gong isn't here, he cannot be admitted into our organization. If only Lord O, the next in power, was present, Chun Yowan could be granted access to enter. What should I do? Chun Yowan felt awkward and anxious for no reason. While Dae Dangdu, who was contemplating, came up with a method. If so, it would be better to take him to the Come Elder and let him know. There is no way that Gong would oppose it. Come Elder was the left arm of Im Gong and was responsible for the internal affairs of the East House and the Guest House. In the morning he would stay at the East House, but he would end up in the Guest House in the evening. It would be better for him to talk to the Elder that always stayed at the Guest Hall. Gong hasn't come back yet, so, if you're comfortable with it, why don't we go and see Come Elder in the Guest Hall? Chun Yowan nodded as Dae Dangdu cautiously asked. There was no reason for him to refuse since he could get a good look at what was in the Guest Hall. Feeling fortunate, Dae Dangdu asked Chun Yowan to follow him. "We need to head this way." He said that the Guest Hall wasn't far. However, Chun Yowan, who was heading towards it, suddenly stopped and stared somewhere with a frown. "What is it?" Dae Dangdu asked, wondering, but Chun Yowan, who was solemnly looking at something, did not bother to answer back. "What is it?" "This mix of energy. It is a foreign energy that made him feel extremely disturbed." On the outskirts of the east lies the East House Manor with East House and Guest House written on the signboard. It is a short distance away from the northern manor. From the courtyard to the main hall, 30 people stood while facing each other. In the highest seat of the main hall was a man, a middle-aged man with a patched eye and a cut on his face that went down until the cheek. Unlike the other eunuchs, he was a man who didn't disclose himself, but it looked like the energy he was releasing wasn't unusual. They had been selected as the most outstanding ones. A eunuch in front of him was reporting. When he listened to the contents, it seemed like they were making a plan to mobilize masters. It looked like the ones in the yard were masters. They were all wearing official uniforms of low-ranking cadets in the Imperial Palace, but each was said to have an energy better than high-ranked warriors. However, there was one person that Chen Yuan noticed. A man with a grim and scared face. It was none other than Hubong. He was all tensed up and sweating, unlike his usual confident self. What is he up to? Hubong always managed to follow Chen Yuan wherever he went. Like the others, he was in charge of entering the palace as a spy. Whether he was lucky or unfortunate, he still managed to enter. Idiot. Always up to something useless. Unlike the masters who were keeping an eye from a distance, Hubong made direct contact with someone and entered into the palace as a member of the East Spear. Are you interested in succeeding? For several days, Hubong acted like a perfect Imperial guard that checked for spies. He thought that something great was going to unfold and entered the East Spear's location with excitement. I like your martial arts, the impression, the flow, and the well-established structure. Come to the main hall in the middle of the day. Unfortunately, Hubong got picked up by one of the East Spear before he could even dig up any information about the spies. He wanted to inform Chen Yuan, but there was no way that they could contact each other with how things were going. The internal energy of those around him wasn't normal, and he couldn't even guess how strong Elder Cum was, the one seated in the middle of the hall. If I could just get out of here. Hearing their plans, it seemed like escaping from their grasp was going to be a tough task. Which was why Hubong decided to peek at any opportunity and run away. On the other hand, the eunuch called Cum, who seemed to be a bigwig in the main hall, was in deep thought. SHKK. He kept on touching the cut on his right cheek, which didn't appear to be an old wound. It seemed fresh as if it happened before the exam. Fuck. I wasn't even sure about the location, but I need to come up with a plan. Originally, his plan was to come up with a solution after finding the real location of spies. On the other hand, his relationship with the first prince, Zhu Taiyun, was also going strong. But he felt hurt when the prince objected to his proposal of accelerating the plan. The prince said that the bookkeeping ceremony was a tradition to be done. The location of Su Hakhun isn't clear, and even those before him also lost their lives after acting too vigilant. Are they trying to work in a rush because of the upcoming examinations? SHHK. Dojo head Cum. You are currently under the main office's jurisdiction. As the one in the main seat, you weren't supposed to be delayed. Except those who are near the door. Understood. Eventually, he had to give in to the orders. It was said that he's the perfect match to be a gatekeeper and one of the craziest among the six. Even with the order, he wasn't sure about taking in someone who had been mobile inside the Imperial Palace. It made him feel uneasy. Well, once the mission tonight was done, he would no longer be in the Imperial Palace, and the time he spent will be for naught. That is all. Elder Cum. After reporting, the eunuch looked at him. As if he was waiting for some kind of an assurance. However, Elder Cum seemed out of place, making expressions as if he was in anguish. Say something, so I can get out of here already. Why is he delaying like that? Hubong, who began to feel impatient, coughed. Ugh. Yet, the moment he coughed, the expressions of the 30 warriors who were looking at Elder Cum went stiff. Huh? Why, what happened? Hubong was puzzled. But he would soon see the reason. Cum Elder, who garnered his attention, got up, looked around, and opened his mouth with a low voice. Who was it? Who coughed right now? Around 30 warriors turned their gazes at the elder without saying a word. With that, Hubong knew what his mistake was. Damn it. He thought that things were going well. He decided to stay silent as things would only get complicated from there. Even so, Elder Cum still shouted this time. Who just coughed right now? It felt absurd to Hubong. He never guessed that someone would get mad at the sound of a cough. No. He is a crazy bastard for sure. Still, he tried to pretend as if he didn't know. But, the 30 warriors quietly turned their heads towards Hubong. Ugh. Bastards with no loyalty. Thanks to them, Elder Cum gazed at him. Hubong began to break out in cold sweat. One cough messed up his entire plan. Hubong, who had been worrying for a while, grieved for the ruined plan. But he still bowed his head to avoid being noticed. I am sorry, Elder. When Hubong apologized, the eunuch next to Cum noticed and tried to calm him down. He knew how uncomfortable the warriors were to be there. Cum was the kind who always vent at the subordinates when he got angry. Elder. He is known as Mu Chung. He was invited here for a meal for the first time today, so he is unaware of our manners. Please. Before the eunuch could reason for the warrior, Elder Cum cut his words. A newbie? Huh, this is bad. An elder is struggling at the moment. How could he even think of coughing? That foolish bastard. Damn it. Hubong pretended to apologize, bowed further, and spoke loudly. I am sorry, Elder. Please forgive me. In fact, he knew that the situation would worsen. Being planted in the unit of Elder Cum is the most distressing situation for him. He really wanted to go out and relieve his anger. Just because the elder is staying calm, doesn't mean that you can get rid of all the military rules in your head. You, mediocre, are truly pathetic. Someone, please tell me that the East Spear isn't a place where people like that can enter. As if something ominous was said. It happened. Fat. Huh? Elder Cum, who was in his seat, bounced off and flew towards Hubong, attempting to blow away his head. It was a swift move. But Hubong, who was anxious and fidgety from the beginning, moved instantaneously and took a couple steps back. How dare he avoid the punishment? As he escaped from the blow, Elder Cum's anger rose. Gathering internal energy in both of his hands, he unleashed it towards Hubong. Hubong, who had already reached the highest mark of a warrior, couldn't comprehend the movement with his naked eye. Shit. His face contorted and seemed like there were sharp nails penetrating his chest. Pat-pat-pat-pat. No. All of a sudden, someone intervened in front of Hubong and dissipated his attack. Despite being revered as someone powerful, his attack got easily blocked, and the man immediately countered back. SWA. 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 The air sword, which moved with profound aerodynamics, drew its trajectory and stabbed the heart of Elder Cum. Elder Cum was shocked at the sudden appearance of an unknown man, but he was still a supreme master warrior. Without letting himself be too flustered, Elder Cum tried to use the opportunity and utilized a unique step to avoid the trajectory of the air sword. Such great sword. The splendid swordsmanship, consisting of 24 swords, managed to move Elder Cum without a second to breathe. Inevitably, the last sword ended up brushing past his forehead. Slash. His body, which was already at a weird angle, was further bent back as the swords aimed for his heart. It is my first time coming across such an attack. It was generally impossible to hit something and make it bounce back right away. However, Elder Cum displayed such sophisticated moves. Everyone watching the duel were amazed, apart from one, the man who intervened. He just smirked. He is smirking? Elder was ready to plunge his nails into the man's heart. Let's aim? Shockingly, as if he had already predicted Elder Cum's intent to pierce his heart, the man aimed for the elder's wrist. He raised his right hand to pull him near and strike him down. Damn it. Elder Cum was ready to use his right arm to bring down this unknown man who was challenging him. However, the power of that man's attacks seemed far beyond imagination. This makes no sense. Ugh. Puck. Tear. Quah. The attack was strong enough to break an arm and ripped it off the moment it struck. Elder Cum screamed and grunted as the pain of his bones breaking and arm ripped off overwhelmed his body. Ah. It was excruciating, but Elder Cum endured it and moved 10 steps back. Holding on to his bleeding wrist, he glared at the unknown man. But the golden? The man was wearing a golden robe. Hubong, who almost died, was shocked when he looked at the man before him. His eyes widened at the sight. If it wasn't for the 24 swords he had seen before, he wouldn't have guessed it. Lord. The man was none other than Chun Yo-won. Chapter 353. The Hidden Power Within the Imperial Palace. Part 2. The chi energy that was released by Chun Yo-won, who reached the level of perfect Supreme Master Warrior, was overwhelming. It's natural to neither distinguish the opponent's chi nor read their strength, but as the opponent gets closer, the more it's possible to recognize the energy they hold. Chun Yo-won, who sensed Hubong's energy in the East House and Guest House, left Dangdu and the eunuchs who were traveling along with him. Thanks to that, Hubong buzzed back to life, as he realized who saved him. Lord. You did well. Hubong. Chun Yo-won looked and praised him. In order to save him, he had to confront Elder Cum. As a result, Chun Yo-won learned that he was tough to deal with. Unlike the other eunuchs, he was mastering an extraordinary skill with his internal energy. Although the eunuch had transformed his internal energy into a skill, Chun Yo-won was never deceived and knew that the opponent had exceeded the unique human limits. Sorry? I did well. Hubong, who knew that both their behaviors would be deemed as suspicious, was puzzled. You found the warrior and the members of the Blade God's 6 martial clan. Ugh. Did I found it? Then that eunuch is from that clan? He was stunned. Hu Bong would have never guessed it. He looked at Elder Kum, whose body oozed with white steam as he tried to seal off his torn arm. That was when Chen Yuan gave him an urgent warning. Hu Bong. Once I give you a signal, get ready to run or hide. What? Hu Bong felt extremely lost at Chen Yuan's order. However, there was one other person who could have understood what Chen Yuan meant. It was Elder Kum. Kua. Elder Kum's complexion wasn't good as he turned pale while he stopped the bleeding on his arm. The moment he sparred with Chen Yuan, he realized that the man didn't belong to the Golden Guards. There is no such skilled person in the Golden Guards. Even the Southern Commander, who is known to be the best of the guards, is far inferior than the man standing in front of him. That being said, the opponent seemed to be higher than Super Master Warrior. Anything beyond that was hard to guess. He isn't a person from the Imperial Palace. What the hell, ugh. Swoosh. As he was contemplating for answers, Elder Kum's expression went stiff. Afar, an unknown energy seemed to be approaching him at a rapid pace. Sinister energy. Elder Kum immediately shouted to the ones wearing a junior officer's uniform. Something is approaching us. Take your stance and be on guard. What? What do you mean? Don't ask and just follow. At first, they thought that their elder was trying to warn them about the perfect Supreme Master who suddenly popped out. However, the members of the East Spear sensed something off and quickly pulled out their weapons. Clang! Clang! They were masters who were approaching superior master level, but when compared to Elder Kum or Chen Yuan, they seemed weak. Yet, they still managed to sense the foreign energy that was coming for them. Swoosh! 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 The sound of something stepping on the ground kept entering their ears. The source of the creepy and eerie foreign energy surfaced. It is here. All of you be quiet. Elder Kum silenced the officials of the East Spear who kept on mumbling in anxiousness. Hi-ing. As the unknown cold energy circulated, the wind began to move in incomprehensible directions and extinguished the torches on the walls. With the torches extinguished, everything turned dark in an instant. Small spheres of light appeared one after the other, accompanied by a sound from the walls and ceiling of the building, which didn't belong to the East Spear nor Chen Yuan. There are flame energy warriors here. Elder Kum cautiously looked around with narrowed eyes. Suddenly, he could see that countless eyes had surrounded their building. Those eyes, shining in yellow under the moonlight, watched them closely. What are they? Does the Imperial Palace have such people? Surrounded by humans with ominous energy, the 30-something warriors tensed up. Their hands that were gripping onto the spears tightened. Turning nervous and anxious because of an unknown enemy is a natural reaction. Swoosh! At that moment, a person appeared in the middle of the yard. The moon hidden by the clouds showed up and the person's face was dimly seen. She was a court lady wearing a red silk robe, with straight flowing white hair, and clasped hands. Chief Maid? Elder Kum opened his mouth in surprise. Although Elder Kum was only in charge of the duties of the East Spear, he still entered the palace for events and festivities, which was why he knew her. The identity of the court lady was Yangwal, who was said to be the second-ranked court of lady of the Imperial Palace. She was placed in charge of the deposit and payments of the Imperial warehouses in case of a civil war. No way. He couldn't help but be surprised at what he witnessed. Standing on walls and fences, with their hands and feet placed on the ground like hunting animals, were the holders of the yellow eyes, the court ladies. Rustle. Rustle. Even those who were newly recruited couldn't hide their unease. The foreign energy they sensed from the court ladies was fundamentally unknown and made them feel nervous. They weren't ordinary court ladies anymore, they all looked unfamiliar and ambiguous. It can't be, are they the ones who are called guardians? The hidden power of the Imperial Palace Guardians. Since infiltrating the Imperial Palace, every effort made was for the sole purpose of finding the Guardians. According to the rumors, the leaders of the Guardians had skilled members that even those from the forces of justice couldn't match. Elder Kum, who only came across East Spear and West Spear, would have never in a million years thought that the Guardians would end up being the court ladies. If they really are the members of the Guardian, we need to avoid fighting with them. Moreover, he had already lost his right arm and his internal energy was drained. He had previously decided that it would be impossible to deal with the unknown Golden Guard. It felt even more unreasonable to clash with Yangwal, the chief maid of the court ladies, who was exuding unfathomable energy. Clench. Elder Kum clenched his wounded hand. Was the chief maid sent here to the guest hall to deliver some task? According to the eunuch's rank, Elder Kum would have been on the same level as the lady. But, because of the East Spear and its effective workings, he was able to become a high-ranking bureaucrat. Chief mate of the court ladies, Yangwal, opened her lips as she looked around. There were rats in the Imperial Palace and the most dangerous one of them got chased in this direction. Did anything interesting catch your eyes? Interesting? I have been thinking for a while, but the audience of the East House seemed to have the Devil's Pandemonium. Hidden Devil's Pandemonium. A term that refers to a battlefield where a devil is said to be hiding. It means that bad things or conspiracy are constantly being done for some evil cause. Elder Cum responded right away to avoid getting cornered. Devil's Pandemonium? What kind of nonsense is that? This is the realm of the East Spear. No matter how important you are as the chief maid, this isn't a place where you intrude and speak without evidence. It was the rule of the Imperial Palace, irrespective of the royal titles given, the access to the residence and training grounds had to be given by the person in charge of the guards. Elder Cum was intent on using the Imperial court law as an excuse to kick out the guardians. Though it's indefinite that it would work. I didn't come here as the chief maid of the court ladies. Then? I came here as a member of the Imperial Palace Guardians, the one you were desperately looking for. Chief maid. Shockingly, the chief maid, Yangwal boldly revealed her identity. There was only one reason why a member of the Imperial Guardians would reveal the identity. To punish and threaten those who disrupted the order in the Imperial Palace. Chief maid, the third leader of the Guardians, I don't know what you're talking about. Everyone says the same thing. Yangwal's right hand began to gather energy. Elder Cum, who sensed it, hastily raised his arm and said, "Lady, it seems like that man there is the Devil's Pandemonium. Look here, I don't know if you can see but he tore off my arm. I was struck." For an arm to be ripped out, there would be no further explanation other than that. Grateful, he thought that his statement was reasonable, but the chief maid didn't even care. Rather, she spoke in a voice filled with power. "What of the injury? As I said before, I paid close attention to you from the moment you entered the Imperial Palace." "Yeah, chief maid. I wanted to persecute the spies I saw earlier, but Wing." Elder Cum tried to point towards the unknown Golden Guard, but he wasn't in sight. From the moment the torches were extinguished and darkness engulfed them, it was certain that the Golden Guard wasn't in the yard anymore. Moreover, the new recruit who coughed disappeared too. Those men. Elder Cum was embarrassed as the people he was trying to blame disappeared. Either they were present or not. Chief maid, the third leader of the Guardians, had already ordered the court ladies to surround the building. According to the law of the Guardians, subdue everything and everyone. If they rebel, you can kill them. What? Swash, swash, swash. The moment the order was given, the court ladies simultaneously entered the courtyard. The recruits, who were nervous and anxious about their future, swung their spears. Fight them. Even if they are the Imperial Palace Guardians, they are just girls. The ominous energy exuding from the court ladies penetrated their minds, but they were soldiers who were trained to fight till the very end. They weren't the kind who would step back without fighting. Hiya! A military officer with a spear rushed towards a court lady. The spear, imbued with internal energy, split into 5, drawing out exquisite trajectories, trying to cut the lady. Swash! 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 Shockingly, the court ladies flooded the enemy's yard. They didn't even gather energy on both of their hands. A court lady manifested a technique loaded with chi as her bare hands moved towards the men. A startling scene to behold. That girl is crazy to the core. The boldness of taking down the enemy with their spears began to sink as they witnessed the force of the ladies. Still, the men decided to meet their end with a brave heart. Tsung! 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 Shockingly, the spear which was used to cut down the girl's hands bounced back upon contact. It was as if the spear hit something rigid. Rather, his palm that was holding onto the sword began to tingle. What is this? While the man was muddled and unable to understand, the court lady's eyes flashed as her palm gathered chi and struck the man's chest. Puck! Kawak! The moment he was struck on the chest, it felt like fire was implanted into his heart. Along with the pain of his internal organs burning up, black smoke began to escape from the man's gasping mouth. A never-before-seen phenomenon. These women, something is weird about them. The other officers also experienced a similar effect. The court ladies ran around like crazed warriors who weren't afraid of death. Sung. Clang. The sword isn't stopping them. However, unlike regular girls with delicate moves, these girls didn't even flinch at the incoming attacks and went for those who were equipped with weapons. The only attack that worked on them was an attack imbued with a strong chi. Puck. Among the officers, there were few superior master warriors. Once they witnessed that neither the swords nor the spears worked on the girls, they intensified their chi. This will work. Fortunately, the intensified chi attack worked on them. Although they were strong, they weren't at the level of Elder Cum, who could have destroyed them in an instant. The attack worked and caused damage. But the problem was, it didn't stop them. This is crazy. Even though the arm of the girl had been cut off, she still ran towards the officer with her eerie eyes glowing in yellow. It was as if she couldn't feel pain. These girls are like monsters. Attack. As a result of what he witnessed, a superior master warrior immediately decided to increase the distance between them. He realized how dangerous it would be to continue fighting such a person. The court ladies, who could feel the heat rising in their bodies, approached them at a terrifying speed to wring their hearts. The recruits and the officers eventually got tired of running and failing at attacking the ladies who seemed to be immortal. On the other hand, Elder Cum, who witnessed it all, was gloating inside. Found it. This is it. Chapter 354. The Hidden Power Within the Imperial Palace. Part 3. The Presence of a Different, Unknown Energy. In short, Chun Yuan's ability to judge the situation was accurate. If Chun Yuan decided to remain in the courtyard, it was definite that the spies of the Blade God's sixth martial clan might join forces with the Guardians and confront the most dangerous person out there, which was none other than Chun Yuan. However, by hiding himself for a while, he managed to lessen the people from both sides, increasing his chances of survival. The hidden power of the Imperial family. He was aware of the presence of such forces, but seeing them with his own eyes made him realize their staggering power. In the War of Jioju, gauging the hidden power of the Imperial family was difficult, besides it was the promise to maintain a non-aggression treaty between the clans. It was absolute that their strength and forte were different from the common martial arts. A completely unique form of power. Like, how dare you use such tricks against the leader of the Imperial Palace's guardians? Lady Yangwal soared in anger at the thought of her being manipulated by an unknown person. Nearly 10 of her people had died trying to subdue the East Spear warriors who were spies of the Blade God's sixth martial clan. Even if they're unable to feel pain, death wasn't what their leader wished for them. That unruly energy being released from his body. The energy which Chun Yuan was releasing made Yangwal's entire body rigid in alertness that magnified her senses. Moreover, she realized how dangerous he was once he took down Elder Cum of the Blade God's sixth martial clan in one hit while he was using the blood reversion art. Swoosh! Yangwal's eyes, which turned back to their normal black color, began to emit a yellow hue. Her body began to release a red haze all around as if she was on fire. Should I try negotiating with words? He had changed his appearance to that of a guard to find the spies, but Chun Yuan didn't exactly kill the spy of the Blade God's sixth martial clan. He only concealed himself as much as possible. It was because he wanted to speak to Elder Cum. Stop. I am not trying to fight you. What did you say? Not trying to fight? I just came here because I needed something. I have nothing against the Imperial Palace. He was someone capable enough to reach the Sky Demon energy and was already a perfect Supreme Master Warrior in both skill and execution. However, his previous actions were disrespectful to the non-aggression treaty, thus he had to be taken alive. Chun Yuan himself revealed that he had no hostility towards them. However, it didn't seem trustworthy. You were here because you needed something? How futile. You entered the Imperial Palace as if it was your bedroom. Even though Chun Yuan had no intention of fighting, from Yangwal's point of view, he was no more than an intruder in the palace. He came all the way to the Demyong Empire and said that his deeds were warranted. His reasons felt shady to the ear. Let's see if your skills can help you out. Fat. Yangwal suddenly moved ahead and reached for Chun Yuan. She was nimble as she teleported to her target in a matter of seconds and went to pierce his neck. Fuck. Chun Yuan simply raised his hand and lightly struck a simple blow on her hand. As if she predicted motion, her left hand targeted Chun Yuan, who just blocked her. Flame? Her sleeve was covered in red and it looked like fire danced on her hand. Fortunately, Chun Yuan acted cautiously because of witnessing the defeat of the warriors using the blood reversion to the court ladies. Then, swoosh! Chun Yuan's left hand moved faster than Yangwal and stopped right at her wounded forehead. If she didn't retreat right away, or even if she tried to move her hand further towards him, her forehead would have gotten pierced, leaving her dead. However, Yangwal plowed ahead and attacked Chun Yuan. Fat. Buck. The two of them simultaneously attacked and hit each other. In that instant, Chun Yuan's eyes discerned something. Yanwal, who got her forehead slightly cut because of Chen Yuan's sky demon energy, took a few steps back. Fat. Blood began to flow from her wound as she was pushed back in 10 strides. Although Chen Yuan tried his best to make sure that the sky demon's energy didn't fatally wound her, he still wounded her pretty badly. Thankfully she survived. The woman didn't even blink. Can't she feel any pain? She wiped the blood on her forehead, eyes, and nose with her long sleeves. What was more shocking was the rapidly healing wound on her forehead. The blood stopped flowing and the skin regenerated back. Such great regeneration skill. Honestly, the regeneration wasn't that astounding for Chen Yuan. But it wasn't as if the lady harbored nano machine in her body. Seeing such resilience from her stunned him. That wasn't the only thing that shocked Chen Yuan. She was trying to cut down my arm. Her red-colored left hand was trembling violently. She deliberately took a hit on her forehead so she could cut down his hand. But the body of Chen Yuan, which developed rapidly into an perfect Supreme Master level with the help of Nano, couldn't be easily attacked. SSSSSHHHHHH. Chen Yuan looked at his hand that was struck by her. The trace of flame didn't disappear, and it seemed like the flame on his hand was trying to penetrate into his skin. Dealing with a woman who has such weird attacks is troublesome. It was difficult for women to learn martial arts since it requires yang energy. Girls, on the other hand, innately possess yin energy. However, in order to develop such kinds of flame qi, it was necessary to hold a high level of yang. He felt that the energy that flowed out was inherent rather than an acquired one. Chen Yuan immediately gathered his internal energy to the veins which were under his wound. The flame, which stubbornly burned his hand, soon lost its power and disappeared with a steam. That sight made Yanwal go stiff. I saw him generate a white light, but does he have the power to get rid of the flame qi too? Who in the world is that person? She did classify him as a dangerous person, but he seemed to be a lot stronger than she imagined. Her gaze turned serious. She came to the decision that she wouldn't be able to subdue him. Oh my. You must have invaded the Imperial Palace thinking that we are nothing. If this is how you are going to act, then I will have to bring you down. Guh. The leader, Yanwal, began to raise internal energy in earnest. The pale and red haze around her body began to gradually turn darker, indicating that she's becoming stronger. Stabling his voice, Chen Yuan once again spoke. I'll repeat it once again, but I have no intention of spying nor intruding on the Imperial Palace. If you let me take this one, I will retire from here as quietly as possible. He knew that it was better to step back before things took a turn for the worse. From what he heard from her, he knew that these women weren't the only hidden power of the Imperial Palace. They were being cautious not to reveal everything, but Chen Yuan didn't need her to spill everything for him to understand. This one is a spy of the Blade God's 6 martial clan who is plotting against the Wulin. Since hitting them in the Imperial Palace would be humiliating for them, I came here. The only reason I am here is to stop these people. Blade God's 6 martial clan? Hearing the phrase, Blade God's 6 martial clan, Yanwal's eyes narrowed. One of the roles of the Imperial Palace's guardians was to collect information regarding all the clans in order to protect the Imperial Palace. You want to stop them? Yes. Wulin and we are involved. But the Blade God's 6 martial clan is using the Imperial Palace to execute their plan. This is why I'm trying to figure out who they are and stop them. He revealed quite a bit of information. However, he was aware that he could be misunderstood for giving too much. But, not everything worked in favor of Chen Yuan all the time. If that is the case, I can't let go of it anymore. The Emperor and the Crown Prince showed favor and acknowledged the Wulin. But now you want to fight in the Imperial Palace. Words don't work on her. Yanwal, the leader of the Imperial Palace Guardians, couldn't share the same ideas and thoughts regarding the Wulin. From her point of view, they would only judge the entire situation as the Wulin clans acting rudely towards the Imperial Palace and the family. I knew that the Wulin too had to be brought under the control of the Emperor. Moreover, she was someone who was loyal and in support of the Imperial Palace. The hostility she showed was understandable. She has to be knocked down. Persuading her didn't seem to be helping. It looked like it would be more efficient to suppress all the court ladies of the Imperial Palace Guardians. Well, there is nothing more that I can do. I tried to warn you. With those words, Chen Yuan began to take slow strides towards Yanwal, who flicked her finger and said, Snap. Forget about the fame and titles you were given in the Wulin. This is the Imperial Palace. Throw away the illusion that you'll be able to leave from a place filled with guardian warriors. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The court ladies began to gather at the snap of her finger. Due to the numerous battles that transpired in the courtyard, their number had decreased by a lot, but more than 50 of them still survived. 2 of the inspection maids, who overpowered those beastly men, also walked towards her with stained swords dripping with blood. The fact that these women vanquished those men who used blood reversion meant that they were extremely skilled. Weeing. The sleeves of Yangwal burned with the flames. Ashes formed where her sleeves previously touched, revealing red scales. Like a shield, the red haze began to wrap around her arms and legs. It will be different from before. This time, make sure to be on guard. Oh, arrogant and cheeky Wulin warrior. You will have to fall alone. With a numerical advantage on their side, Yangwal couldn't help but feel confident. She judged Chen Youwen as someone who was equal to her in terms of power, but with her subordinates by her side, she was sure that the intruder could be taken down. But it was strange. Despite being alone, Chen Youwen didn't seem afraid. Rather, he muttered unexpected words. Alone? What are you talking about? At Chen Youwen's words, Yangwal couldn't help but ask. Who told you I was alone in this? What was that? It was then. From the eastern wall and the roof of the main hall of the guest house, 3 humans dressed in full black appeared. Yangwal couldn't help going stiff at the sight of the people whose energy couldn't even be felt by her. He wasn't alone? Looking up, she saw one man dressed in a junior officer's uniform. His face was full of scars. The moment she tried to look at other's face, the other one disappeared in an instant. She tried to move her gaze to find out where the other was positioned, but it seemed like her naked eyes weren't of much help. Giving up on her sight, she concentrated on hearing his movement. The sound she heard made it felt like the entire court ladies were surrounded by an unknown force. Unbelievable? How could I miss an enemy's presence? Someone came over and stood next to Chen Youwen. This person wore a strange mask on his face. Mara Kim has come as called for. This person seemed to be waiting for Chen Youwen's order. Unlike the words that escaped his mouth, the body of the one beside Chen Youwen radiated energy that poured in all the directions where the court ladies stood. A feeling like death was waiting for them. The released energy's true identity was related to a section of the Wulin. It was none other than the demonic cult. You were all hiding. Well, I never said that I was alone. At that moment, the man standing on the east wall, who was hidden in the shadows, came down and slowly walked towards the court ladies. A man with flaming red hair. Red hair? As they slowly moved, one of the inspection maids stepped forward and yelled while aiming her sword at the red-haired one. Stop right there. How dare you break into this place? If you don't stop right now. Despite her warning, the masked man with red hair didn't stop. Feeling threatened by the energy he was releasing, she immediately imbued her flame chi onto her sword without bothering to warn him again. Whing! Crack! Crack! The sword, which turned red with the flame chi, bent like a whip while moving at the speed of lightning towards the masked man. Flame, huh? The masked man had gaps on his mask. Seeing the skill the lady unraveled, he couldn't help but smile. The moment the sword reached him, the masked man pulled out a sword from his waist. Slash! A blade covered in red patterns. In an instant, intense heat began to engulf everything around him and collided with the sword of the inspection maid. Clang! Clang! Their swords clashed with heat, and the result was bizarre. Blaze! That sword is. The eyes of the guardians were filled with shock and embarrassment. Startlingly, the sword of the inspection maid began to crack as it was unable to overcome the masked swordsman's skill and shattered on spot. Clang! Crack! My flame sword got taken down. The man in the mask spoke to her in a daunting voice. You are acting so arrogant just because you used the flame chi? Woman, you only operate the flame chi. I am the sword of the red flames which consumes every flame that surrounds me. Red flame? My skills and yours are like heaven and earth. Wing. Woong. With his words, the red sword began to vibrate and the masked man went to stab the maid right at her heart. Pierce. Shocked, she tried to avoid getting hit by moving her body, but the masked man was quick to move and went for her shoulder. Even though they were unable to feel physical pain, she still felt fear from the overwhelming energy he was releasing. As soon as she was injured, she made sure to increase their distance. It can't be? My sword got cut with his? Another maid took the guard position to protect her injured companion. 2 of the new court ladies were more powerful compared to the others, but they didn't seem to have any regenerative power, as their right arms seemed weakened. Ugh, the red hair and red flame? It can't be, you are the Fire King, Li Heming? Their eyes widened as they looked at him. Although they weren't active in the Wulin, they were still aware of the Guardians who were known to be the most loyal and skilled members of it. What? At the words of the court maid, the leader, Yogwal, looked at the masked man in shock. You are the Fire King? The left hand of the demonic cult's lord? Wait a moment, if that is the case, then the one in the mask right next to him is Marakim? It was none other than the great guardian Marakim, the famous guardian of the Wuline. Hundreds of masters had died in his hands, and he was known as the greatest of the three guardians of the demonic cult. The Fire King and the great guardian of the demonic cult. Yangwal, who couldn't guess the true identity of the man who used sky demon energy, was now trembling as she opened her mouth. Then you must be the Lord of the demonic cult?